You're watching Let the Quran Speak. Now we discuss interfaith dialogue. In modern times, there is a growing trend towards understanding and peace amongst various religious groups. For this reason, there is a strong desire for interfaith dialogue. Are Muslims open to interfaith dialogue? What is the aim of dialogue? And what guidelines does the Quran offer for those engaging in interfaith exchange? With me to answer those questions, Dr. Shabir Ali, President of the Islamic Information Center. Dr. Shabir, you have engaged in much interfaith dialogue. What are the reasons that you think it's important for an individual to do so?
Well, at least as a community, we have to engage in dialogue, and Muslims as individuals as well, at their own levels, depending on their training and education, their understanding of Islam, their interaction with non-Muslims, they will find themselves inevitably engaging in some level of dialogue, and they should always try to equip themselves to the best manner possible to engage in such dialogue. But for me personally, it has been a long adventure, and I find that there are many good reasons for engaging in dialogue. First, many people have very little idea about Islam, especially in a country like Canada, where Muslims live as a minority. So many would welcome the great opportunity to learn from Muslims directly about their faith. They might have heard something about Islam and Muslims on the news. They may have heard some negative things associated with Islam and Muslims, and deep down they feel that that negative stereotype cannot be representative of all people.
But they're not sure how to counter it, I guess.
Exactly, and sometimes they want to hear it directly from the Muslims. What do you think of this? What are your views really? What does your religion teach? It is one of the great characteristics of the Canadian populace in general that we are a tolerant country. We are willing to hear other ideas. We champion multiculturalism, and we celebrate diversity. So there's no need for a Muslim to hide his faith or to be reluctant to express what his faith is. That does not mean that a Muslim will belligerently go about trying to convert everybody, but at the same time, when the opportunity arises to explain his or her faith, the Muslim should be ready.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other sorts of benefits that you can think of interfaith dialogue?
The Muslim himself or herself are in fact instructed in the Quran to share the faith with others. The Muslim core belief is that the message of God came through all of God's prophets over time. Prophets who are mentioned in the Bible, prophets like Abraham and Moses and Jesus. And that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, came as a culmination of that prophetic line of duty to deliver the message of God. And after the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his followers bear the responsibility of conveying God's message to other people. That doesn't mean that people do not have God's message at all. No, the person innately already has a sort of divine inspiration that guides the person to choose between good and bad. Everyone has what they refer to as an inner conscience. But the conscience may sometimes get faded and sometimes rusty due to outside influences. A person may at times find it difficult to decide between good and bad. But the message needs to be delivered to that person to remind him or her about responsibility before God, about fairness and justice and kindness and mercy and forgiveness and living in harmony and peace with everyone around them. So a Muslim has that responsibility to deliver the message.
Mm-hmm. What does the Quran say about how one should engage in interfaith dialogue?
There are several passages that speak about this. In the 16th surah, in the 125th verse, we have the expression "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal mau'izati al hasana," or invite to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching. So this is an inspiration for Muslims to use wisdom and a good admonition, a reasonable admonitory style that will help people to understand the message rather than for people to turn away from the message feeling that it may be too harsh or something difficult for people to swallow. Sometimes you may have what you feel is the truth and you really want to tell people, but you have to measure your words and think about how you're saying it, because how you're saying it can affect whether the people will accept it or not.
Yeah, so it's not just the message, but it's also the medium, how you convey the message.
Exactly, because people have feelings. People want to be talked to in a way that appreciates them and is respectful towards them. And a person who feels he or she has the truth may feel we don't need to think about that. We just tell them like it is. But the Quran addresses Moses and Aaron. Well, the Quran shows that God addressed Moses and Aaron and said to them that when they go to the Pharaoh, they should speak to him a kind word, a soft word, qawlan layyinan, لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى, so that perhaps he may pay heed or he may fear God. Here is the Pharaoh with all of his corrupt influences, and the prophets of God, Moses and Aaron, are being told to speak to this man with soft words, so that perhaps he may pay heed or finally fear God.
Mm-hmm. Are there other verses, some of them speak about not arguing with other people?
Yes, in the 29th chapter, in the 46th verse, the Quran says, لَا تُجَادِلُوا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Do not argue with the people of the book except in a most gracious manner. And say, our God and your God is one. And of course, we submit to God.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess you talked about conversion. The purpose of interfaith dialogue, is it conversion or is it understanding the truth? What is the purpose?
Ultimately, a Muslim may desire that other people would see Islam as a religion of truth and that they would embrace that religion. Mm-hmm. However, that should not be a primary objective in engaging in a particular moment of dialogue. Otherwise, that clouds the issues and it makes the outcome definitely calculated to be sour. If you make this your objective at the moment, I want to convert this person that I'm talking to, well, the person will sense that. They will find that you have a deep interest in convincing them at that moment. And when people feel that there's that deep interest, they
get turned off.
Yes, they put up a sort of block, mm-hmm. A shield to protect themselves from any undue influence. Because if you have such a strong vested interest in changing the mind of the person, then you may say or do things which are unbecoming of a Muslim. And that too is bad for you. So you have to put that greater interest aside, or that latent interest aside, and think about the needs of the person at the moment. What does this person need to understand? What is this person puzzled about? What questions do they have? What doubts and misgivings do they have? Try to understand those and see it from the other person's perspective. And it's only when you see it from the other person's perspective that you can effectively answer it.
So I guess listening is very important.
It is, yes. And understanding, empathy, mm-hmm. trying to see it from the other person's perspective. There should come a moment where the Muslim says, yes, I can understand that from where you stand, Islam looks like this. Mm-hmm. However, if you permit me, I'd like to tell you that from where I stand, it looks this other way, and let me explain why. And hopefully then, your listener can put the two perspectives together. It is important that you acknowledge what the other person is seeing. Sometimes we deny. Somebody says, Islam is bad. And we say, no, Islam is not bad. Well, yes, you are correct. But that's not going to help because it's yes, no, yes, no. But if you say, well, I can see that from where you stand, Islam must look terrible. The person says, yes. And then you say, well, from where I stand, it doesn't look bad. And let me explain why. And now, when you start to explain what you find good about Islam, then the person will think, yeah, I'm speaking here to an intelligent person who understands what I feel and what I see and knows and can acknowledge what is true, because to that person this is true. Mm-hmm. So that is the fact of the person's experience. We should never deny that. Mm-hmm. So we should acknowledge that is the fact of your experience. That's how you see it. I understand that. But let me explain something more. Then the other person is willing to hear the other side. And now that person can put the two sides together. What they thought they saw, what you said you saw. And as you acknowledge the fact of their experience, they can now acknowledge the fact of your experience. And now they have the two experiences to synthesize and to come up with a conclusion. And we hope that that conclusion will be positive in their ongoing...
So from what you're saying, it seems that one has to be pretty sophisticated to engage in interfaith dialogue. Not every average Muslim can do that sort of thing.
Well, yes and no. There's a certain level of discourse for which we do need professional people.
Okay.
Companies hire PR persons who are trained in that particular line of duty. But at the ordinary level, every person can do this, not with the level of sophistication as a PR person, but let's think of kindness. Kindness will dictate the manners and the way of delivering what you believe is right. Your care and concern for the other person. A story depicts Omar, the second caliph of Islam, as feeling sympathy for people when he found them to be on the wrong path, and they were laboring so hard to serve God, but in a way that Omar recognized to be wrong. So he shed tears for these people because to him this is a pitiable condition. And sometimes we miss the point and we feel anger towards people who seem to be on the wrong
or
path.
disgust.
Yes, or disgust. But rather we should feel pity and we should feel love for these people and try to reach out to them. There is a passage in the Gospels where it says that when Jesus saw the multitude, he pitied them because to him this was like a sheep without shepherd. A Muslim should actually feel that way, that people, if they're misguided, when people are given to drunkenness and adultery and gambling and murder and violence, we should feel that people really need the guidance of God. And since we have that guidance in the shape of the glorious book of God, the Holy Quran, we should be willing to share that with others out of love. And pity for people and sympathy with them, not delivering it in a style that shows disgust and intolerance and rage and anger.
Mm-hmm. What sort of common values would religions hold dear? And that might be a means to work together.
I think this is an important point that you're raising here, because in fact the Quran does instruct Muslims to call towards common things. In the third chapter of the Quran, in the 64th verse, it says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana." Actually, I already mentioned that verse, but the verse I'm looking for is the one that says, "Qul ta'alaw," say, come, ila kalimatin sawa'in baynana wa baynakum, to a word that is common between us and you, that we worship none but God, and la na'budu illallah, wa la natakhidha min dunillahi shuraka, that we do not take anyone for partners apart from God. This can become the beginning of a dialogue in which we look for further common elements. So you ask more generally, what are the common elements? Well, there are several. And of course, to put all of the religions together and find all of the common elements, it's not easy. But we can see that across the board, whether in religion or outside of religion, human beings are the same. We all want good things in life. We want to have good friends. We want to have a peaceful life, a reasonable means of income, some security where we live. All of these things are what religion is about living in harmony, about protecting yourself, protecting your family, taking care of your environment.
About being good people.
Being good
ultimately.
people on the whole. I mean, there are externalities of religion which involve the particular ways in which you pray and so on. But the internal quality of religion is to develop the person and make the person good. We talk about the purification of the soul in the Islamic faith. That idea is so common across the world's great religions. And sometimes we miss this important inner component because we are preoccupied with the externalities.
All right, very nicely put, Brother Shabir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll take a break, and when we return, we will answer questions we've received from you, our viewers.